All right, there we go. We're unmuted.
And we'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 23rd meeting
Second.
and a vote? Dan,
Aye,
that was an A. Okay,
correct.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 28th meeting as presented.
second. And a vote?
Aye,
Okay, 5-0 on both. Okay, this evening we have Turner Allen from KB Cog, who is going to give us a presentation of the MAPS project work that we asked KB Cog to work on with us. One of the primary goals was to get the steep slopes maps updated from what it had been. This was a request made by our former CEO, Bill Butler. Now, just to set the record straight, $50 for this project. It was the goal was to bring on a single interface. Now, I hope everybody recognizes that the maps we've been using have been reasonably accurate, and so it is with what we now have on layered. And so, for example, property lines are not absolute property lines. There is probably no way we're going to actually have absolute property lines, at least to my knowledge, in the near future. That would be a massive undertaking and is not the goal of this project. And the tax maps are not layered necessarily on absolute property lines. Tax maps are there for the purpose of giving a pretty good estimate of what each landowner has or property owner has in the way of assets in terms of land and buildings. So with that as a prelude to the presentation, I'll now hand it over to Turner to walk us through the maps effort that he's worked on. Thank you.
I appreciate the prefacing with that. I'm gonna get back to all that quite shortly here. Yeah, if we get the presentation up, I can get started. So yeah, I believe in July or August, we started working on digitizing the parcel and the tax maps for the town of Mount Vernon in partnership with the town. And this is going to be a basic overview of what that work looked like and what digitization really means and what it doesn't mean. So this has also been an effort by the state to get accurate, reasonably accurate digital versions of the town's tax maps and assessors data so they can pair with a greater state of Maine data set. And that way, when people are not surveying, but looking to towns, looking at development opportunities, you get a good idea of parcel sizes, what's on the parcels. Again, it's more about pairing them with other municipal data. So I'll get started here. Oh.
I can control it on my end.
Okay, I'll just give you a
Okay.
So first off, why we did this. The town developed a digital parcel data set to improve planning and zoning decisions, property assessment workflows, provided digital resources for property owners to access information about their property. And this resource is bringing multiple existing data sets and town maps into one unified interactive map for the purpose of being able to absorb this information. And instead of having to go to 7 different maps to get all the information, this will place all municipal data that we have access to onto one central resource to view. You can go to the next slide. So digitization, it's just creating a digital copy of the existing maps. This is a photo from the process. So I'm taking the tax maps and creating anchor points with a map of the town of Mount Vernon, layering the tax map with the limited existing digital parcel data that we do have, and creating the best possible trace onto that map. So once those lines are set, you can move around the map and those lines will stay in place. And we've really just tying all the parcels together based off the different maps. So eventually I had all 27, 13, many tax maps all laid out across like a Google, basically, if you think about Google Maps, overlaid on Google Map view of the town. And I would zoom in to draw these lines using other complementary data like water bodies. We have the wetlands data that are on the portions that are on the assessor's map, but I would anchor them with these data that we do have. So digitization again is just a digital copy of the existing maps. The process involved tracing, converting the existing tax maps into a digital GIS format. And it's a representation, not a redefinition, as Carl mentioned. Just to be really clear, the parcel lines were not newly surveyed. Boundaries were not changed, legally changed. This data is simply a reflection of what already existed in map form. So again, just to reiterate, to be super clear, what has not changed? Property boundaries, there's been no new land survey. Property ownership and deeds remain unchanged. The property ownership and deed information was recently updated with the most recent assessor's data. And through digitization, we're trying to improve access and usability. And again, it's not a legal definition. Are we frozen up again? Yeah, and some of those photos too are from other towns that have similar viewers. So Skowhegan has one. It's very nice, very expensive, very fancy, and we can get some of the same usage out of it in a simpler format without paying the same price for a company that just does that. But again, even on those very expensive maps, there is some boundary distortion, which kind of brings me to this slide. So just to briefly explain like why the boundaries may look different, is because when we're taking data from many different layers, many different levels, I guess is more accurate. So there's federal data that takes wetland and elevation data at a national scale. There's very specific town scale data like the parcels. There's also statewide data, like some of the aerial data, the building footprint data. And when you are taking these screenshots at different levels, the data is meant to work at those different levels. So when we combine them all onto one surface and try to zoom in, it's going to be a little bit distorted, if that all makes sense. And we feel free to ask questions after I'm done. I'm happy to clarify this more if I'm missing anything. So basically the three main reasons why data gets distorted is that variability in source map. Original map layers may vary in scale, age, and accuracy. The georeferencing adjustments. The maps are aligned to real world coordinates, but those small positional shifts occur as you get to a more and more finite level with those zooms. And like I just said, when you're overlaying that data, they were created at different levels and that they're not necessarily meant to work at that finite scale that you might be doing when you're looking at your property data. But we did feel that having that data all together does still provide that usability that we're looking to achieve with this project. So once again, actually depends on scale. Parcel data, this is reliable. This is what many other towns do. This is what we've been doing already. This is just, again, a digital resource. And this does work well for zoning review and planning decisions. But again, it's not to be used for anything at a finite scale, like construction staking, fence placement, any sort of legal conveyance or determining setback requirements. You still go through the standard practice that we've been doing for, however long it's been common in this town and state of Maine to get that information. And again, just to remind, like as you zoom in, you're asking the data to do more than it was designed to do, because it was created at those varying scales. Where if you look at, you can't really see these images too well from this distance, but as you zoom further in, the building footprint data is there. It's those gray polygons on that bottom photo. But because of where the data was captured, once again, um, it's going to shift slightly because the parcels were not created at the same level of zoom that they created the building footprint data at. That's like aerial imagery that was created to include large areas where the parcel data was created just using the town boundaries. Again, I can continue to clarify as we go forward. So when you open up this map viewer, there's a very clear disclaimer. And it's basically articulating all these things that I've been repeating over and over again. This is for decision support. The data comes from multiple agencies and timeframes, and the town and KV-Cog are not liable for errors and omissions, although we can still use this for all the reasonable decision-making aspects I've mentioned already. So when you use this, please make sure to read the advisory because it should provide clarification. So these are just the sources behind the map. So as I said, data was taken from multiple different agencies. The main office of GIS for the town boundary, addresses, road labels, building footprint, and farmland data. Main Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife for the environmental data. And then we created some data based on the existing municipal data that we have access to, such as the parcels, the land use districts, where those districts intersect, the shoreline zones, all those different municipal data that we have. So yeah, and then once again, nothing new was necessarily created. They were all digitized and put into one resource. All these maps that are now layered on top of each other already exist in other forms. You can see a photo of the parcel tax maps. That's map R01 in the top left. We can pass around the steep slope map that was created using these already defined steep slope areas. We have the land use district map that again has already been defined. And we have the farmland data that again has already been defined. We're just simply layering it all on top of each other. So when creating this project, these are the key benefits that I'm just going to emphasize once again. It centralizes the information for staff and the public. It improves consistency in decision making, reduces the reliance on paper maps, because if you ever had to do aspects involving these data, you have to go to all these different sources, but now it's all been consolidated into one location. Just going to support the planning, permitting, communication process. And as we update the assessor's data over time, we can just pair that directly to this existing parcel data through those parcel numbers. So R01, lot 001, that'll be continually updated with the assessor's data as that ownership switches. It's a very simple workflow. You can pair the Excel sheet. The assessor keeps the information directly with a table that holds the coordinates for these parcels. It's all very simple and continue to be updated, for as long as technology is relevant, which I don't see that changing anytime soon. And once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to be very clear. We have some appropriate uses and inappropriate uses: planning, zoning review, general property research, municipal workflows, applications for tax extension programs. We have towns who already do this to find out, farmland, tree growth. We can add more layers to this eventually too, if there's more data that could be helpful for the town and for the public. And again, once again, it's not to be used for engineering design, legal boundary disputes, survey grade measurements. I am repeating myself, but I think it's quite important to be clear about that. So in conclusion, this digital resource makes information more accessible and interpretable, ultimately more usable, but it does not change any aspects of what has already been surveyed, decided, defined by the town. It is just a combination of the resources that already exist in one central location to make everyone's lives easier and more efficient, hopefully. And then you actually can zoom in on this and use the map from here. And we can do that and take a look. And I can just give you a brief explanation on how I would use it. So over here, you have the full town as a whole. you can zoom in. I can use the computer if that'd be easier.
I can control it if you just tell me what
Okay.
to click.
So as you zoom further in, there'll be more and more labels that are visible. Again, there's still some labeling that needs to be corrected. Streams are still missing label, and I believe Taylor Pond is inaccurately labeled. But then again, even the building footprints here, you can see varying levels of accuracy. But I still feel that it is quite accurate for the majority of town. And as long as you have this idea of how the data is distorted, and you're not trying to do any of this engineering planning, it does serve its purpose quite well. So if you zoom out again, on the left-hand side, you have the legend. So there's some labels there that don't have symbology with it because they are, again, they're labels. So as you zoom in, more and more of that will be either visible or they'll turn off depending on the level of clutter that they created. And if you just go to legend, you can see the different icons for what everything means. We have the steep slopes layer, we have the land use shoreline overlaps, the shoreline zone, the land use districts. And then if you go to that second icon, you actually be able to select things and turn them off. So I've split things into categories. So there's an environmental category, which is conserved land, farmland, stream, wetland, and then there's an administrative category that is the parcels, steep slope, land use, shoreline overlap, shoreline zone, and those are all selectable, so you can view them. It's all overlaid over the most recent ortho imagery, which is aerial photography of the state of Maine. So there's lots of different things to click on here and interact, lots of different information. You also can use that search bar in the top right-hand corner, and the across the screen to the top right. So you'll be able to search property owners' names, which again comes directly from the assessor's information. So if you put in last name, you should.
Trying to pull the town office.
So if you put so there's also just general so it's called Open Streets. It's just same thing as Google Maps, so you can find any location in the world, but of course not all data is going to be displayed everywhere because this is town of Mount Vernon data exclusively. But you can also search by your parcel number. So if you type in R01, and you should scroll down. And so I think that's sourcing it from yeah, it was right there. Again, some of this is pulling up locations. We can zoom in on.
There we go.
There we go. And you should be able to click on that arrow, and it should allow you to choose where you're searching under. So if, again, it's not going to be the specific address of a place that and you want to search parcels, hit that little arrow and you can search for the parcels you want or the owners' names. Should be able to search. Well done. Yeah, and so again, I'm still working on some of the labeling aspects and the search tool itself, but that's about all the information. If anyone has any questions, this would be a great time. I can take any. I also realized I repeated myself a lot, so if there's any additional confusion, I'm happy to clear that up. Sure.
Can you come to the microphone or bring?
I can take it.
I have a lot of concerns when you talk about using this tool for planning. I started doing GIS in 1988. This whole mapping program that you're talking about, something I designed a long, long time ago. And I have some real concerns. There's property lines. I have a property line that's 173 feet from where it's supposed to be. on the earth. And I think you minimize a little bit the challenges of the data. The parcel data is 1 to 500. That's accurate horizontally to about 4 feet or something. I'm not sure, 4 or 5 feet. Then you've got the hydrography, the roads, plus or minus 40 feet of accuracy horizontally. Then you've got the farmland data, which is an even smaller scale. The accuracy of that is even less. Then you've got the imagery that you're sitting behind all this stuff. And the most recent imagery is about 1 foot, 1 to 2 feet. And you've got the slope data, which comes from the LiDAR imagery, is a different scale. So you have all these different accuracies of this data. And if you look at it, a lot of it on top of each other, you've got your farmland and a lot of other data, wetland data that goes right over roads, goes over building footprints. You know, those data sets should have been edited to take care of that. I mean, you can do all that. If you're going to present this data to be used for planning, so somebody can look at a property and can I build here? What type of property is it? 40 feet matter. 30 feet matter. So it's a big difference. And how can you, with good conscience, say someone can look at this when you know some of this data is going to be 30 or 40 feet from where it should be on the earth? It's not just a little stretch or a little difference in scale. I think you really need to have the metadata. You know, I went through the tool. There was no, federal law requires you have this metadata. It describes what all the data is, where it came from, the scale it was done at, how accurate it is, when was it last updated, who's the contact person at the source of the data, so that if you've got questions, you're looking at the soils, you want to know who to call, it's in there. That should all be accessible to us, you know? Where's the abutters tool where you click with your mouse on the parcel and it brings up who the abutters are? That's important to people. It's pretty standard in this type of an application. And I mean, I could go on, but I guess my point is it does not seem well thought out. I think the concept is a good one and it certainly can be a very useful tool, but I think you're way too early on in your development process to really present this. I don't think it's appropriate yet. I think you really need to put a lot more work into it.
And I don't know if this question is really for you or the select board or even anyone here, but you know, the accuracy that you talk about, can anyone speak to the accuracy of trying to line up that paper map and the PDF that's on the webpage in comparison to this? While there may be some accuracies that, you know, can be improved, I think it's leaps and bounds above what we have now for planning. Where we have planning now trying to take these maps and align them, you're not talking a couple feet.
And I also would like to say, like, those are all great points, and which is why this should be used in partnership with the other maps. This is to help lead your discovery process about your properties. This isn't supposed to be a be-all, end-all like fix for these maps. And there are some great products created by CGIS, I believe, that create maps in this region. That's my understanding. That's the majority of the business they do, and they have whole organization built to creating these parcel viewers with all of this data. Again, this is supposed to help the inquiry process of this for town staff, for property owners. I wish that I had the capacity to create something with the thoroughness that this data could be. But again, this is supposed to help with the inquiry, and I'm sorry if I misrepresented it as a be-all, end-all truth about geographic data of the town.
I think it's one thing the state of our town published that as some use. It's not ready. I just don't think this is ready, even for what you're saying it's good for. I'm not arguing that. I just don't think it's ready. I think this some editing. Look up my property. It's 173 feet off. I find that hard to understand. I didn't hear the question.
There were some properties that were geoprocessed incorrectly in the initial that have been corrected since that point. So property maps U9. If you check yesterday, then that data is that you're viewing right now. But
Yeah,
actually, if you're viewing an old version of that.
My name isn't even on when you click on my property, my name isn't even on it. That was 6 years ago. Again, I could go into a whole lot more. I'm not gonna, but you really need to spend a little more time doing some QA, QC on this stuff.
Sorry, Karen Maris, 1065 Pond Road. Could you, Tyler, pull that up so we could do a search and we can pull up your property, which is 173 feet off? And I did not check mine this morning because it made me log in. Mine was at least 300 feet off and my waterfront property doesn't even show up. So
1066 Pond Road.
let's do Chris's first. I'm sorry. No, what was your address? We can. 49 Bean Road. And this is just for 2 samples.
The most recent one for imagery is got 2-foot accuracy, but you really want the background. All the stuff's got on turn on.
Yeah, so if you go to the legend, which is
Yep.
or the layers, which is the second icon. Sorry, not the legend.
Yep.
And you can turn off you can turn both those things off. Yeah.
Yep.
But you might want to keep the parcels on. So if you go into administrative, you can keep the parcels on, and then you can deselect the shoreline zone and the land use districts, but keep the parcels on.
Parcels are on.
There we go.
All right. And then what was the other?
Parcel red or something, so they show up better on that background. Did we change the color on the fly?
He can't change the color on the fly, but we can update that.
This pulse. There we go.
Or you could shut off the satellite, maybe. That might make it
Well, I think the
easier.
satellite is what he wants to see.
Oh,
Hmm.
Would be,
Hmm.
so that's. Yeah, so, but I can't see the property line. That's what I was saying.
Well, that's something that can be changed. We can update it so the
Tyler.
lines work better.
Here, I've got
You-
an application.
Put the mouse over the property line by the pond, right where, and then go out to the road from there. Right there, where his mouse is supposed to be at the culvert on the outlet of that stream. So go up to the top of the screen. It's supposed to be right there. That's how far off that is. And that's a long ways.
that would make a difference if you wanted, oops.
And there's other aspects of my property line, it's not just off, but there's other aspects of the whole thing that are incorrect as well.
1066 Pond Road.
1065. It looks like it may have been fixed. Can you take the satellite off and put the,
So if you go to layers
the
again,
dull.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that looks good, actually. So left, that's my house, our house, and then see the driveway that's long down to the left. The next property.
Yep.
That whole property was shifted an entire property so that our house was facing the guardrail and we had no land across the pond, excuse me, across the street. And I'm not sure our neighbors is there, but, and then if you go back, I think, yeah, to the, on the water side.
Yep.
That piece, if you click on it, see if it goes to anybody. It was blank last time. No, that one's, all right, so that's been fixed. So I appreciate that, but it wasn't before, and I think there's probably a lot of other people in town, like Chris, that it hasn't. So go online at home and check and then give the feedback because they did fix it. I do appreciate that.
and again, if there are parcels that are missing ownership information, it's been paired with the most recent assessor's data through the parcels, through parcel IDs, the parcel numbers. I think of course, we want to shoot for the most accurate possible, but with the budget of this project, some of the quality assurance and, changing the coordinate systems of the different data is quite time consuming. And again, there are great products that do a much better job at that minute scale, but working to create something as this visual aid, I still believe with the information we have, it is quite useful to help facilitate that process.
It's on.
I'm Susan Herman, and I was on the ordinance review committee and worked with the committee and with Turner on this project. I just want to give a little bit of background on this. Our committee was originally asked to update the steep slopes map and to look into getting a water bodies map for the town. Right now, our steep slopes map is not digitized. It does not have tax parcel information at all. It was done in 2001, and Heather's showing you. So as far as the steep slopes map is concerned, because the underlying layer on this, it shows current parcels, and they may not be 100%, up to a survey as far as boundary. I find that would be a lot more helpful than what we have now. And I think that's why the code enforcement officer 2 years ago asked us to get the steep slope map digitized. So I think it accomplishes that. Our current zoning map was done most recently in 2010. So it doesn't show any parcels that were created in the last 15 years, 16 years. So if you have a new property that's been created, you can't find your individual parcel on the current official zoning map. So I think this is a big improvement as far as that goes. And I think Turner brought with him actual paper maps, not the parcel viewer platform, whatever you call it. But we have paper maps that we're hoping can get approved at town meeting and incorporated into our land use ordinance so that we have a current, a map that is current and shows, up-to-date current information. The paper maps, I think, are a big improvement over what we have now. Can we tweak it and make it better and have, more of a Cadillac map viewer? We could. But it's, as Turner said, it's going to be a lot more expensive. This was a very, I think, cost-effective way of doing this project. The steep slopes map and the zoning map were provided to us as part of our membership, and KV-COG did not cost the town any additional money beyond membership fees. And it's the tax parcel map that I think people are having, concerns about because it's not as accurate as it could be. What we have now are CAD maps, CAD maps, PDF format, that you can't layer with anything. And if I'm understanding what Turner has said, he took the information on those maps, and that's what's represented up here on the map viewer. So our current CAD PDF maps have probably the same deficiencies. So I do think this is a big improvement. I think it takes Mount Vernon into, the modern ages, and I find it very great. So, and I thank KB Cog for the work that it did. So that's my 2 cents.
Turner's maps are not going to be any better than our tax maps
Correct,
right now.
correct.
Our tax maps are not to scale. They don't meet any of the deeds. We do not go by deeds. Okay, the tax maps are a fair representative figure of lands, and they can't be taken. You can't take dimensions off of them, and they're not a fair representation of someone's property. You have to look at the deeds in order to get dimensions for property. Okay, you cannot look at tax maps and get figures. You cannot get proper orientations of lots from tax maps because we do not go by deeds.
Remy,
I am.
can you speak in the microphone?
I'm on the town website right now, and the link itself is not. It is forcing you to sign into the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments.
So that's in the outdated link from the initial draft of the map viewer. The new version has not been posted on the town website yet, which is this version, but we can get you a link to pull it up.
I can grab it right now and make the edit.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
I think
As
you
the
should be able to launch it from that.
Yeah,
If you want to hit full screen there, it actually might just do it for you. There we go.
yeah, just because if we're giving the presentation right now and people want to look
Yeah,
at
I
it,
didn't realize the link had changed.
yeah. How often will the link be changing?
That was the last time as we changed, going from the draft to this version. We can put the link to this in the chat if that's helpful. I can do that. Or I can send that to.
Just put it on the town website.
Yeah.
I think that'll take care of it.
I'm trying to pull the link.
We're
I should be able to pull it out of the
our
spreadsheet.
website. Under documents, stats, maps.
Yeah, for people, it's under documents and then tax maps, and then if you scroll to the bottom, there is a link, but it's getting updated right now. So
Yeah.
Are we putting it on the town website in this moment? Oh,
Yeah. If you just reply to that email, I can just copy and paste it.
sure.
Where'd we bury it, Carl? Public service. Property taxes.
Do we have other questions while
I
we
will
pull
update
this
it
up?
right here.
It'd be easier when the map is up, but so one of the questions I have is you have the farmland data as an example, and you have that. It goes over the roads, and normally when one would expect that you would take your roads and parking lots, things like that, out of the farm layer. And it's the normal way that it's done. And I think that this viewer and the steep slope, I understand this slope data is useful. I think and I understand that the data is the same, right? I understand that these paper maps that get used are the same. That it's the same data, but when you give someone the ability to look at it all at once, then all of a sudden you're looking at farm data and you're looking at the amount of that matters, right? When you look at a town and you say, this is how many acres of farm are, that matters when you're doing planning, because you're comparing, right? The amount of land that's one type and another. And when you look at this now, it shows you where data is wrong, right? So that's a good thing, right? We're talking about, it's hard to see, you have all these maps separate, what's right and what isn't. But now that you look at this and you can see on my land as well, a lot of my land, my neighbor's land is put down as prime farmland right where his house is. And over the road and across the intersection. And most of my land is all forested and a lot of it's classified as farmland. I know it's nothing you did or anyone else that's part of this. This data was automated, came from somewhere else. But I think there's a responsibility if you're going to provide this to the community. I think the community is going to assume the data is good. No matter how much you write your little thingy in the front disclaimers, people are going to think it's good. When they see a map, people want to believe it. And yet it isn't, because you're showing that it's not good. And I understand we only paid a little money. And that you did probably way more money's work than what you got paid. I've been where you're sitting. I've been exactly where you're sitting. So I know what it's like to do a lot for a little. I think that we have to be very careful about how this is presented. I think it needs a lot more work, and I think it should be presented as something that's in process very clearly, and that the data needs to be reviewed a lot more. And I have serious concerns about this process where you're saying, I want individual landowners to come forward and show us where the property line is bad. Because a lot of people are never going to do that.
We aren't asking that.
No. People have asked me.
I can clarify as well. So it's actually a soil type and it comes directly from Maine Farmland Trust. And that comes directly from Maine Farmland Trust. And that's simply soil that's been identified as prime soil land. Again, I think what you bring up is exactly right. That can be clarified in a way. It's not a land cover type. It's not here's where there is farms or farmland. It is simply from a soil survey done of the state and Maine Farmland Trust, which the map is embedded in the presentation. There was already existing soil map for farmland for town of Mount Vernon. And that is simply to identify key soils for crop cultivation, I believe. And that's what that layer is. And you bring up a great point about the way data is presented, and that can be clarified in that symbol and legend item that it's a soil type. I believe it does say soil on the legend, but if that isn't the case, then that should certainly be updated, because that's completely understandable why people might get the wrong idea, especially when I was first using this data in comparison with the land cover data. The town requested that this Maine Farmland Trust data is put on this map, which is common in all comp plan maps as well. And I originally put in the farm land cover type instead of the soil data. So I've made that mistake myself in creating these. And if that doesn't specify it, I think it just says farmland. But if you click on that maybe, or if you click on the parcel, it says, or maybe you go to the legend, I believe.
Yeah.
It says soil area.
It says all areas of our prime farmland.
Yeah, so that's a classification directly from the Maine Farmland Trust data set that this data is from. And it should be clarified that this is soil type. This is a soil that is prime for farming. It's not necessarily farm land cover. So I can totally see how that's confusing, as I've made that mistake myself. Yeah, certainly. But again, it was a soil survey, so the soil qualifies for that farmland classification. And I don't have that classification or soil type off the top of my head, but I can get that information as well.
I'm impressed that we're having conversation about this because with the maps, the paper maps that have been at the office for years and years, we haven't had these conversations. So I think this is good that we're starting to step into the new world, if you will, in terms of what are the issues that we need to solve in the future. I mean, this is the first step. That's it. We can take it from here.
And I completely agree. This is super important. I appreciate your questions about this data because it is very important that there's more clarification provided about these resources, because the point of this ultimately is so we all know what this is in education. So I really appreciate the questions you've asked so far.
I
And-
think we got a quote back during when we were bidding this out that it was fairly expensive to
Oh, yeah.
go with the alternative provider that I think you had mentioned that did the
Yeah, it's
CGIS
CGIS Solutions.
it was quoted, I
30,000?
believe
It was over
it
10,000.
was over 10,000.
If you pull up the Skowhegan map viewer as well, you can see what that looks like. It's very nice. But again, there are still those boundary distortions. I believe the way that those are created is that they get the boundary pin locations for all the deeds in the town, and then they hard code that into their own data set. And those are full teams of people working on those projects, is my understanding. Again, it was done. I can assure that they are representative of the maps they were created off of. But again, at the end of the day, this was basically traced. But again, when I say trace, I think it's a bit demeaning to the work and time, but it ultimately is a tracing of these maps onto the town boundary of Mount Vernon. So that town boundary, which we learned the state town boundary had an error in it, which we corrected. So the town boundary was paired to all the parcel that were created. By created, I mean copied from the paper maps, the PDF maps.
We
And you
do
can zoom in.
we do have a pretty full agenda, so I'd like to, unless there's a last burning question, I'd like to, Remy.
Who should, if people find things wrong with their maps, who should they be contacting? Should it be you or should it be the select board?
The select board.
Is that form still, there was a survey, there was a feedback form or?
And any person who provided comments either to the select board or ordinance review, we created a form and we gave it to KB cog. And I believe that all the comments that we got have been addressed. And I think there was a deadline of, I can't remember, March 15th. Everything was posted February. So it was up for
Yeah.
at least a month. People were asked for comments and we did get some comments, and we actually noticed some stuff ourselves. And I believe the select board maybe did as well. So all the comments that we did, we've heard some tonight that we haven't heard before, and certainly they can be addressed to an extent, within the scope of the project that we undertook. And yeah, the other bids, actually, we came in with bids for this work, and we actually were directed by the select board to go back and get more bids because they were too high. That's my recollection. So
We also wanted to have bids from national companies, and none of them were at all interested in this work.
I called 12 or contacted 12, and I got a bite from one, and then they declined to bid once I gave them the information that we had. So we tried to get, a good survey of what was out there as far as resources. So.
All right. With that, we're going to say thank you, Turner, and I think this is a very helpful presentation. And then we're going to move on to the Ordinance Review Committee. So Heather, are you going to speak for the Ordinance Review Committee? Thanks, Turner.
Thank you, Turner. Thank you, Turner.
You.
Yep, just a second. So Heather Roberts, Chair of the Ordinance Review Committee. And for those who aren't aware, we have other members here as well. We have Michelle Pino, Sue Herman, Fred Weber, Nona Boink, and Quimby Robinson, all members of the Ordinance Review Committee. And what I can do tonight to help in the essence of time, the items that we need to discuss with the Select Board and get approval from Select Board are only items that we're recommending amendments to. And those are the items we need for public hearing to get on the town warrant. So we can limit the discussion to only those items, and we can come back at another time to go over, I mean, so the action items that the Ordinance Review Committee was given by the Select Board back in January, these have all been posted on the Ordinance Review, on the town webpage under the Ordinance Review Committee, and all our responses are also posted on there. So we can come back to go over every single one of these if you want. But for now, we'll go over the ones that we recommended amendments for. And the first two, which I've asked Turner to stay for, we've already talked about. So we need to, the Ordinance Review Committee is recommending that the steep slopes maps be updated as Turner has provided. They are the maps that were created, I think, in 2001. And the tax parcel maps from 2024 have been overlaid on top of them. As was discussed previously, the previous CEO requested this tattered map he had on his wall be digitized and updated so he could have a better reference for steep slopes. Out of that, we also updated the shoreline zoning to include the tax maps from 2024. Both of those items will need to be approved by the Select Board to go to public hearing, to then be discussed by the town, and then voted on at town meeting. So and we can do one at a time if you want, to see if the Select Board approves for those amendments.
I move to adopt the steep slopes and shoreland zoning maps as presented for a public hearing and a vote at town meeting.
Second. And a vote. Dan?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Thank you. So I printed out copies for the Select Board if you want, or you might have them digitally. These are the proposed amendments that I sent to you, I don't know, last week or the week before. The first one on here is in regard to the height restriction for ground mounted solar energy systems. I will go over our notes that again are listed on the webpage along with these proposals. So the Select Board had asked us to look into the height restriction that currently in the land use ordinance is 10 feet. And feedback that the Select Board had received was that that was insufficient for dual panel systems as well as tracker systems. So the Ordinance Review Committee, we looked into this. Our current ordinance for this mimics Reedfield, which they have a 10-foot height limit. We called and we talked to the Reedfield CEO, and he said he had had no issues with the 10-foot height limit, but he did note that most of his permits have been only for roof-mounted solar panels. We discussed with some civil engineers who design solar farms and asked about what they've seen for height. Their biggest concern is from the ground to the bottom of the panel. They aren't concerned with the total height. But from two previous projects, they had said ones that they had looked at were 10.5 feet to 12 feet high, but they were horizontal dual panels. We also found some documentation from the Solar and Energy Storage Handbook for Maine Communities, which was published in January of 2026. And in there, it talks about the tracker systems and that they range from 10 to 20 feet in height. So it is the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee that we update the land use ordinance to, instead of a height limitation of 10 feet to 20 feet, to account for the tracker systems. So in our proposal, there are two places in the land use ordinance that need to be updated from 10 feet to 20 feet. And they are, I can rattle off the sections, or you guys have them in the printouts that
I move that the Select Board approve amendments to land use ordinances for solar panels update section 5C, subsection 5A, subsection B, and section 6E 38, subsection D, as amended and presented by the Ordinance Review Committee.
Second.
And a vote? Dan?
Aye.
5-0.
All right, thank you. The next item will be in regards to the firework ordinance. The select board had asked us to look into potentially increasing the days that were allowed within the shoreland zone and the village district. Upon our review of the firework ordinance, we determined that the hours that we were allowing did not align with the state. We were more permissive. So we recommend that we update the hours so that we align with what the state allows. And what that does is they are allowed between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m., except on July 4th, December 31st, and weekends before and after July 4th and December 31st. The Ordinance Review Committee was willing to evaluate adding an additional day or weekend within the summer month period. Our understanding was that there was some interest from the fire department to have more availability to have fireworks. We had tried to reach out to the select board and the fire department to say if there was a specific weekend that would be of interest. And we didn't hear any direct feedback. So in the essence of time of getting the time of fireworks updated, the Ordinance Review Committee recommends that the firework ordinance be updated to align with the times allowed by the state.
I move to update section 4D, I believe. I don't remember how to read Roman numerals. 4D of the land use ordinance for use of consumer fireworks, as presented and amended by the Ordinance Review Committee.
Second.
And a vote?
Aye.
5-0.
All right, and last but not least, this one is had to do with table 11.1 being updated. There was many discussions on fees being updated, and the fees have been updated by the select board. But during that time, we realized that there were many references within the land use ordinance to specific fees that are then referenced in table 11-1, which only leads to human error or missing items. So we have gone through the land use ordinance and searched for every reference to any fee that is listed in table 11-1 and made it generic to, instead of a specific dollar amount or cost, it says as defined in table 11-1.
I moved to amend the following sections of the land use ordinances as recommended by the Ordinance Review Committee in relation to to fee structures. Section 6, subsection C, subsection 3, subsections A, B, and C. Section 7, subsection D, subsection 2, subsection B. Section E, subsection E, subsection 1, subsection B. Section 11, section D, section 4.
Second.
And a vote?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you. Those were all the proposals that the Ordinance Review Committee had. I will, Remy, send to you tomorrow information to get these listed in the Kennebec Journal. The first listing will need to be as early as Friday, but I'll send you all of that tomorrow. And if the select board would like at a future meeting, we can go over all of our other feedback to the other items, the ones that we have concluded no action or ones that are rolling over to next year. But all of that is on the webpage as well. So for anyone who wants to review any of that, it's there. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
to
Thank
the
you.
Thank you all.
Ordinance Review Committee for all the work you did. Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion about school advisory committees or committee. Mount Vernon at one time had a school advisory committee. The reason for this conversation is that the RSU 38 has basically made the decision that they're going to eliminate pre-K occurring at the elementary school.
Kindergarten. Pre-K and kindergarten.
Yeah, I was going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to eliminate kindergarten, as I understand it, for 1 year. And that again is going to, that was a decision made where we didn't feel we had quite enough time to have any input on it. And so there's two facets of this that I'd like to talk about. One is recreating the school advisory committee. That is a group of ideally parents that will interact with the school board and the select board in a public forum like this, as well as having our school board members who might provide more of an update to the select board and to the town about events that are happening on the school board. The school advisory committee does not have any voting rights on the school board, whereas the current 3 members that are on the school board do have voting rights. Susan, can you give us some additional background on the advisory board and how that might help the town? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Seems like I'm on the spot a lot these days. So I'll try to be brief. When we joined the RSU, the plan provided for local advisory committees. I believe that's what they were called. They don't have voting rights, but they do have, under our plan, which not all plans have, it was an option, the ability to, if that advisory committee feels that there's some unique local needs of the elementary school, and that's the jurisdiction of the advisory committee, is the elementary school only, which is defined in the plan as pre-K through 5th grade. They can ask for municipal funding, and if it's approved, get it included in the RSU budget for programs that, for whatever reason, the RSU decides they don't want to fund. It's not a priority or whatever. So that was included in the plan. I think as far as this particular decision is concerned, the decision has been made by the board. I found out that the pre-K decision was made in December, and the kindergarten decision was made like a week or two ago. I think it was March 18th or somewhere around that time. That is going to be whatever cost savings, which have not been identified, would be realized by that decision in Mount Vernon and Wayne, are included in the budget, which will, by the time we get an advisory committee elected in Mount Vernon, it won't be until June, and the budget will already have gone to a vote. So it'll be too late. So, but too late for this, for next year, but perhaps the year after that, unless the board reverses its decision, which a group of us asked them to do. There was a group that went to the recent board meeting from Wayne and Mount Vernon. Various people made the same request, and as far as I know, that's not going to be changed. I haven't heard that it would be. So that's the background as far as the advisory committee. I think we definitely should have one, because this is a big issue. It's an ongoing issue. The current 1-year plan, if you look at the appendix to the 1-year plan, there are 2 scenarios, both of which propose closing the elementary schools in Mount Vernon and Wayne in year 5. That's in the 1-year plan. So it seems to me that we're on a course right now that if it's not predetermined, it's heavily weighted in that direction. for school closure. And I feel pretty strongly that we were not given sufficient notice, warning, ability to give input, looking at alternatives. I don't think that we're alone. I think a lot of towns are going through this. And a lot of towns have had ad hoc committees created by their select board to look at options. And some of those towns are looking at options like withdrawing from the RSU. That's not something that, I'm not sure that's something that the local advisory committee would be the right forum for that. I don't know the answer to that, but I think until we get a local advisory committee, I think we should have some sort of committee that gets the information. Because I've heard different things about school population for next year. I've heard there are 8 kindergarten kids. I've heard there's 2 pre-K kids. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. And I think that we need some fact finding to be done. And it needs to be done right away, not wait until the election in June. So.
Thank you. And is the advisory board something that needs to be elected as opposed to committee members that would talk about it? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be elected under the RSU plan. I think we could appoint the vacancies, but where all 3 seats are vacant, you'd have to pick and choose who has a 1, 2, and a 3-year term. I think the best course of action is to
Well,
reelect all
we can-
3.
We can decide if we want to do 3 or we can do 5.
Right, but there's term lengths to that, Bob. And
What's
are they staggered terms, or is everybody up at once?
We can do any way you want.
So they'd have to be staggered, and we'd have to sort all that out. So I don't think we're in a position to appoint at this point. So I think the best course is that we recognize that all 3 are vacant and that we ask people to pull papers.
Right. Well,
But I like what Tyler's saying, and I do think we need a committee. I will just say, I think it's unfortunate that we've not been given a heads up from our town members of the school board, one of which attends our meetings regularly, religiously. I've not heard anything about this. I think that's unfortunate, but it's water over the dam, I guess. But I'm interested in what you said, Bob, about 3 versus 5. Just to put my cards on the table, I think a larger group, a more diverse group would be really helpful. How is it 3 or 5?
Wayne has 5. What I would suggest is what we have to do is put these positions on the ballot. If we don't get names in time, we've got to get them on the ballot. If we want names on them, they have to be
Before
25.
15.
Yeah,
The
they
20
need
I thought it was the 21st.
25 signatures.
I got extended out to the 21st because it's Patriots Day.
Okay.
Right. So if we don't get the signatures, we'll have to do write-ins.
And
But what I would do is go to the PTC and see if we can drum up some of their people to run for these positions. They're the ones that really have a stake in this.
right, I think getting parents to participate in this kind of a committee is critical.
Yep.
Because
I'm going to push back a little bit, though, on this notion that the board didn't notify us. All of their agendas are public on the website. All of their agendas are posted on social media. Every one of the select board gets the agenda emailed to them as soon as it's available by the administrative assistant. So I just want to be clear that they notified people. It was notified and it was public. People chose not to go to those meetings when they had through this entire budget process. It was announced on their agenda back in December that they were discussing changes to preschool. It was posted and made available. It may not have been an information stream that you find convenient, but it was made available. It was made public. So I just want to be very clear here that the school did what they are supposed to do above and beyond that. We may not have liked the outcome that has happened, but they haven't done anything particularly wrong. And I just like to make that clear.
I think that's fair.
Yep. Kathy?
Kathy Jacobs, North Road. I just want to make clear also that a decision has not been made to close Mount Vernon and Wayne Elementary Schools. The school board is forming a committee that they are hoping includes all town members that want to be involved and want their voices heard, to start talking about what the options are when you have 3 kids in kindergarten. Yes, there are 8 kids coming into kindergarten, and that's from the school. I've got the information. But I've also heard that 2 of them will not be coming now, so that's down to 5. So I think it's important that we need to look at what is the best educational experience for those kids, and we need town input for that. So the school administratives and the school board have worked really hard on trying to come up with how this plan is going to work and how it is really going to include communities and their voices. No decisions have been made. They have been talking about various options, and people have immediately jumped to, that's what they're doing. But that's not what they're doing. They're not doing anything until they hear from the communities.
Yeah, just for everybody's information, I met with Dr. Smith and Mandy last Monday, and they are forming a committee, as you just mentioned, a strategic planning committee to try to address these questions. So the point is that it's important for us to understand what's going on, be part of what's going on. And again, to that point, Dr. Smith and Mandy are willing to come and talk to us here to describe where they are in the whole process. I mean, the idea is to make sure we're in that process, part of that process. And whether we do it through an advisory board or just by grassroots effort, it is to me moot, but it's important that we have a voice in this, and that we don't just sit there and accept whatever happens to roll out our way. And again, I'm not saying that anybody did something wrong. I'm saying that there's more to come in terms of the planning that's going on. And if we're not involved in it, it's probably not going to go the way we want it to go. Right.
I'd also like to point out that we elect 3 school board members to represent us. And if you don't like the way the school board members are representing the town, you can vote them out or run for school board. I think there's only one person at this point that's pulled papers to run for the school board.
Karen?
Karen Maris, Conrad, I think you just said, Tyler, that those 3 representatives give you guys a report in an email.
We get the agendas in an email from the school administrative assistant as soon
Okay.
as it's published.
Okay, so I would ask that the select board, when you get those agendas, put the school board representative, which generally it's Noah that's here. I don't know the other 2 that are on it actually. Give them the opportunity on the agenda to give a report, as well as the treasurer and the fire department and the transfer station. Put them on the agenda once a month, rotate them. They don't all have to be at the same time. So they fill you in and they fill us in. It's a better communication. So I don't think we should be throwing them under the bus either, because I don't see them on the agenda. That's all.
Okay, in terms of Susan.
I really appreciate it. I think it's, and as far as happiness, I know that they are saying they haven't made a decision, but if you read the appendix, if you go to the back of the report, you look at the 2 scenarios that are in that 1-year plan. year 5, there's no more Mount Vernon Elementary School. And I don't think if you take out pre-K and kindergarten this year, that those kids are gonna come back. If they're going to another school, like, maybe there were 8 and now there's 6. But, you know, I gotta wonder if some of those kids are dropping out because of the information that there's not gonna be, you know, a viable school population here in a few years. So that's my concern, but I do really appreciate that this board is being proactive. I just want to thank
Thank you. And to the point about Dr. Smith and Mandy coming out to talk to us, when is a good time to do that? Because I'd like to schedule it. They're willing to do it by toward the end of this month or early May. Does that make sense to anybody? Do we?
This month, I
I
would
mean,
think.
we have a meeting on the 20th, so
So do it at a select board meeting?
I think so.
I
I mean,
think
if
so,
that's
so the town can
that's-
hear. Is that school vacation? So that's a bad.
So why don't we do it May 4th? That's our next meeting after that.
Okay, let's
May
see.
4th.
I'll run that as an option to them and see if that works.
I mean, I would just run both dates
Yep.
at that point.
Okay. Great. Next up, I'm going to skip over the school board members because I think we've incorporated that. Let's go to the town operations coordinator vote.
Yep. So I presented the information on the town operations. Oh, don't click that button. Town operations coordinator back in
Thank you.
February, maybe end of February, middle of February.
2 weeks ago.
All the feedback I've gotten on it has been positive. I've circulated the job description around, so I just wanted to bring it back to the board and make sure we're all kind of okay with that process, because we are gonna have to do a similar search that we did for the town clerk. This one would be pending funding approval at town meeting as part of the approval of the admin budget. Currently it's projected to be $29.50 an hour, 40 hours a week, with full benefits, so health, vision, dental, and retirement. Again, same as the town clerk. So my tentative plan would be, if we approve it tonight, to get it posted by the end of the month, have applications be open for 1 month, and then conduct interviews in and around town meeting, depending on how that vote goes, for a July 1st start date on the position. With that, I move that the town adopt the town operations coordinator position with an effective start date of July 1st.
Could you pause 1 second? I'm obviously going to support that, Tyler. I'm just a little bit worried about your timeline. Should we make that search a little earlier than that?
I mean, if we leave applications open for a month, that's 30 days, and then we have 2 weeks to review applicants and interview. I think that's a reasonable timeline.
I wonder
Okay.
if we can't bring that person on board earlier. I want to also say that for everybody to be aware that Kelly Hutchins resigned and took another position up in the Farmington area. So Kelly is no longer working with us at the town office. And so part of the reason I'm saying maybe we can bring somebody else on a little earlier is that Kelly's salary is freed up for all intents and purposes.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I was trying to be, as budget conscious as possible. I mean, I think with that, if you want to go with that timeline, if we posted by Friday and stuck with a 30-day search, that would put us closing applications on the 8th of March or May. Interview the week of the 15th or the 22nd. And hopefully announce we could start probably the second week of June.
Yeah, right after.
Town meeting.
Yep.
I'm not opposed to that. If we're good and we're committed to, kind of tracking that, I think that's fun.
I like that. I think that's better, but there is one potential danger. I'm backtracking a little bit, just thinking this through. I think we should go with that, but it's possible that this person would be hired, would work for about 2 weeks and then be out of a job. So,
Hence why I don't want the start date to be
Yeah.
until after town meeting.
yeah, that's actually why I'm backtracking.
Town
Tyler.
meeting's the 13th, the start date would be the 15th.
Yeah, I get that.
The
That's-
admin budget at town meeting.
On the one hand, I'd love to get Callie some help, but I think because of the position's actually got to be approved by the town, I think the start date on the 15th probably makes the most sense.
So do you want to amend your motion?
I amend my motion to be June 15th. Start date.
Second.
And a vote?
Aye.
5.
I would also like to just put on the record that we have had some complaints about the town office phone not being answered. So I'd like to address that to everyone here and to the public, that while Heather is the only one in there, and if she has someone at the window, which as of today, when I was there, it was a steady stream. We're all trying, including Bob answered the phone for a while, but sometimes we don't have the answers. So if your calls aren't being picked up, that's why. She's alone right now. And I just think that the public needs to know that. So thank you for your patience.
And just to add on to that, Callie starts next Monday. So hopefully we get the phones back being answered and
Absolutely.
things start to smooth out.
Yeah, I missed the school part of it.
Say that again.
Somebody online. If you're online and you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom functions. Special town meeting results.
Yep. We had our special town meeting on Saturday and we were pleasantly surprised that both articles passed. They were, one of the articles was passed 22-2 and the other was passed 24-1. Just wanted to give everybody the update if you hadn't seen that on the website.
With that, I have a couple of motions that are kind of ancillary to Article 3. I move that the town of Mount Vernon sign the amended and restated declaration of trust for employees of the municipal and other public employers of the Maine Health Trust, Health Insurance Trust. This is the documentation to join the health trust so that we can offer benefits as of July 1st.
And a vote,
Aye.
5-0.
Snag your pen. This one? Yeah, I screwed up. All right. I didn't write Mount Vernon legibly.
That's all right.
All right, now I gotta find the page back. Oh. Yep. And then if Bob can notarize that.
You're right. That's, yep.
I move to adopt and sign the participation agreement with the Maine Employees Health Trust as presented.
Second. And a vote,
Aye.
Bob. Okay. 4-0. One abstention.
I move to send a letter to the Maine Employees Health Trust with our stated intention of offering the following benefits: the Acadia Medical Plan, the Katahdin Medical Plan, the Moosehead Medical Plan, the Basic Life Insurance Plan, the Dental Plan, and the Vision Plan. The town of Mount Vernon will cover. Each plan will be paid at 80% of the employee-only premium. There is no waiting period for new hires. These benefits will take an effective start date of July 1st, 2026.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, that was a motion.
Second. And a vote?
Aye.
It does not need to be notarized.
Bob, are you voting on that one? Nope. Okay. 4-0, one abstention.
And I will have scanned copies of all of that on the website as soon as I get the scans. Remy, do you want me to, or do you want to reach out with MMA and get all that filed?
Were you talking with Lauren?
Yeah.
I can chat them.
This doesn't have to be notarized.
No.
No, that one doesn't have to be notarized.
Okay, are we done with that?
I think we are good. And then between Remy and I will coordinate with MMA and make sure all the I's and T's are dotted for July 1st
For full-time employees.
for full-time employees.
Thank you. Next up is Dan, can you give us an update on the community center ramp and groundwork?
Yes, as you know, we approved the two contractors, the winning bids, I believe 2 weeks ago. I've been in touch with both. We're coordinating a joint meeting, which will likely happen in very early May. I will give you all and the town a little bit of a heads up that Eddie Manter, who will be doing the Manter construction of Sydney, who'll be doing the site prep, has suggested we may have some problems with the parking area and it being out of compliance because it's not level. He's not sure about that. The idea is to let the ground thaw and dry out a little bit. And he's not sure whether or not we can cover that, any change in that slope with the existing bid. It's just a sort of an open question. I'm sorry about that. He wants to wait for the ground to thaw and to get a good level on that. So I don't know if there might be some additional work that has to be done in the parking area to keep it level. I will tell you that he does a lot of work with Travis Mills organization. He's very well prepared, very skilled at this. He's going to try to work with us to keep it within the existing bid. Just a heads up, it may not happen. It may be a bit more.
And Dan, can you give us an overview of the cost estimates?
Yeah, I think we approved this last time. AmRamp will be doing the actual ramp, and that's $51,000. And the site prep was, I'm sorry, $49,000, and the site prep was $21,000.
Okay, thank you. Next up on the agenda is a discussion about the town manager. Not that we're going to have the discussion here, but rather that we're going to start planning discussions about the town manager. And we're going to ask the governance committee to work with us to communicate the rationale that was determined in all the research they did for why a town manager makes sense. Unless there's anything else that anybody wants to talk about, we'll move on to the next topic, which is to consider creating a recreation committee as opposed to independent athletic, field, beach, and after-school care committees. The idea is to roll all those three activities into a recreation committee. But the goal is to get more involvement in helping with those with the beach and the athletic field, but also in terms of aftercare, as Tyler, you might want to talk more
Yeah,
about
so
how that works.
this kind of came up through the budget process in that we have one person on the field committee and no one on the beach committee.
We have 3 people on the beach committee.
Have they met?
I don't know. I don't police them, but we have 3 people on the beach committee.
Well, that would have been nice to know during the budget process. The point standing that the committee is not active, did not submit budget requests, as they're kind of required to do. And so in talking within the budget committee, it was kind of thought to lump the 3 activities that the town sponsors that are for children, after school, management of the town beach, and the athletic fields, and kind of group them together to make them all row in the same direction, but to make it easier for volunteers to find what they're doing and draw more volunteers in to help with the process, because there are some projects that are coming down the pike. The softball field is in need of some pretty major work. It's not maintained right now. The existing baseball field is in better shape than the softball field, but it's not. In talking to some parents, it's not the best as it could be, and there are some plans in the work among some parents to bring a proposal to the town to fix it using existing funds. Aftercare's up and running self-sufficiently, so I'm not married to putting after school within a combined recreation committee, but it was kind of floated as an idea that they're all kind of tied together. But I'd kind of open that up for discussion and public comment.
Topic. Next up then is long-term capital planning. I think the question is whether the select board is going to produce a list of capital plan projects and then work through them with public input, obviously, or whether we create a committee that we work with members of the community during the planning process. There's positives and negatives to both approaches. It's not that we're going to begin the planning at tonight's meeting, but rather just to put it out there that those are considerations that we're working through.
Yeah, I mean, I was the one who asked for this to be on the agenda, so and asked for it to be a committee. And I'm just going to use the budget committee as kind of an ancillary to that. The select board should be involved in that process, start to finish. But I think having more community input in it, more just to take some of the workload off, because I think we all, myself included on the board, have voiced our concern about the increasing workload that's being put on us for all of these various projects that need attention and need dedicated time. And I think if you had that out as a committee like we did with the budget committee, yeah, there's a lot of work there that can be done to review engineering reports, to create bids, to do site walkthroughs and meet, with the various stakeholders that use the facility. If you just take the fire department, for example, I'm sure if you went down there and met with Jason, the fire department, you could get a laundry list of deferred maintenance just on the buildings. Uh, between station 1 and station 2. You know, the library, I think, is probably in the best position, but they also just spent a lot of money to bring that building up to code. And do the work that they've done onto it. We're spending a lot of money already and proposed on this building. And that's not to mention the $1 million project of roads. So I think having a committee that takes a look at not only how we're capital planning or what needs to be planned for, but like overall how we're managing future expenses that we know are coming down the pike, is all of our assets are depreciating, our buildings, and our apparatuses are all depreciating assets, and looking at how we plan for those asset replacements when they come due.
I think that makes a lot of sense, but one of the concerns I have is the relationship between the committee and the road commissioner. All right, how would that work? I mean, it's a source of consternation, right? Why are we not doing a particular road? Why are we not doing it this way, that way? Your thoughts on that, Tyler?
At the end of the day, it's a recommendation. But on the flip side of that, the select board controls the checkbook. If we don't want to fund a project, we don't have to fund it. And I think beyond that, you can go up to the town meeting level and say the same thing. If there's a project that doesn't want to be done, it doesn't have to be funded. So, I think there is a dynamic there that needs to be adhered to, given that it's an elected position. But at the end of the day, the select board signs the checks, signs the front of the checks at the end of the day.
Would you imagine that Lee would be part of the committee?
I would say we did during the budget committee. Lee was brought in. We asked questions. It was collaborative. I would set the same expectation of a capital planning committee, that it's a collaborative process where you bring stakeholders in and you identify the needs, you identify what the timeline on those needs are, and then you bring that report back to the full board for a discussion. I don't think it's at the select board necessarily delegating authority. It's delegating work that just needs to be done, that hasn't been done in a clear and concise way, where we get a report every year of this is the goods with our capital assets, this is the bad, this is the long-term trends. And getting that report every year would greatly improve budgeting, because you're going to have consistent budgeting within your capital amounts of what your capital needs are. And then if you get some one-offs, that's a different conversation. But the fire trucks, we know we're going to replace the fire truck every 10 years. We know the compactors at the dump have a shelf life. We know the roads have a shelf life. Buildings, a little bit different, but we know a lot of the subcomponents within the buildings have a shelf life. Like, all of this can be tracked and identified and done. But a select board that meets once every 2 weeks doesn't really have the capacity to do that in an efficient way. Lacking a town manager, this is the best solution that I see.
Yeah, I agree. I support the idea.
Kathy?
Kathy Jacobs, North Road. I think your idea is very important. I think we need to do that. My question is, where does the comprehensive plan fit into everything that you just said? Because it sounds to me like that would be the
So-
guiding principles behind everything.
Well,
that you
what
said.
I would say to that is the comprehensive plan is the blueprint of where we want to go. But in terms of the day-to-day realities, we need to manage capital assets, and we're not managing them currently. So this is going back to we need to have that inventory. We need to collect all of that data and centralize it. And then as the comprehensive planning committee releases its report on where the town wants to be in 10 years, you factor that in. But in terms of, at the end of the day, the boilers have a shelf life, and we need to plan for that. The fire trucks have a shelf life. We need to plan for that. The ramp out here has a shelf life. We're rapidly approaching it. And now we're gonna fund it all at once. Whereas if you're identifying those needs, 5, 10, 15 years out, you can go back to the budget committee and say, this is the cost of depreciation on the asset. That's what you need to budget in for capital.
Yeah. Said they want.
Yeah.
I would hope that that be a strong consideration.
Yeah. Yep.
I would propose that the select board get together and create a preliminary list that we then decide whether the committee idea is the best way to move forward.
I think that's a good idea because we struggle to get people on our committees.
And this would be a committee that'd be, I think, long lasting.
Yeah, it would.
Would be there long lasting, but like, I'm just using communication as an example. We have one,
Where there's two, but
well, two, one, Chris.
beside Tyler and myself.
Oh, okay, three.
Sorry.
So two select board has to make up some of the committee. So are we gonna do that again for, the capital? That's what I'm saying. It's hard to get people to join these committees.
I just think that there's a lot of items that need to be put onto a list
Yes,
out of the gate, and then we can, I'm sure, expand on that. But I'd like to have the opportunity to just have conversation amongst the select board in a public meeting and then decide what the best route is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should start putting a list together. That's our first point. We're the ones that know what needs to be put on the list, and that's
think
what
so,
we
yeah.
should start with.
I really like your point, and I think and the comment that you made as well, Peggy, and I think it's a larger problem that I'm just beginning to see. I've only been coming to these things for 9 months or something. So much work, and I see all these committees that exist. I've tried to read through notes and agendas and minutes, and they're sparse in some cases. They're not current. I understand it's from lack of resources, not will of the people that are involved, right? I get that. A consideration, I think, is overlap, which is what I heard when you're talking about it. And I think we're going to want to think about at some point looking at all these committees and how much overlap is there and can they be reduced? It sounds like there's a real issue about how to manage the limited resource to be the most effective. Anyway, that's my thought.
Before we plan it, I think we ought to get the ground. Just a list of what we're going to start with. Start with the road, start with the sand shed, start with the transfer station. Let's get that started with first and then go from there.
I think it's a good idea, Paul.
And also talk about how we might fund each of those things.
That's right.
Whether we need to go out for grants and things like that. Obviously, that's a first choice option, but there may be other areas where we have to do the cost on our own.
Right. Right.
All right. To that point, should we schedule a meeting like next Monday or something like that?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, I mean, if we want, like I said, I think it's long overdue to start. At least we need to identify, and I don't think it's just one meeting. I think it's going to
No,
be. I think, we can put a list. We can spitball a list together, but unless we're going site by site by site by site by site, and identifying everything and getting a comprehensive list done, again, you're just piecemealing it. You're not doing a comprehensive look at what is the capital need there.
You
And
know, I
that's-
get that, but I'm sort of surprised that we're not looking to some of the, I don't want to say stakeholders, the people that are, I mean, with regard to the library, just don't have any idea. You know, Sherry Wenzel should be able to tell us about the community center. I mean, which parts of these projects could we get good feedback on before? I mean, otherwise we're just, what, are we just taking a stab at it? You know?
And again, I think that's where it, and I think there's been some pushback at the board level too, though, of when capital needs are identified, that we ask for a second, third, and fourth opinion. So we can go back and ask for department heads to submit those reports of what they've identified as capital needs, but we do need to take them at face value that if we're going to ask for those reports, that we're going to take them seriously and not say, well, are we sure did a structural engineer, say this, or is it from a department? If the department head has identified a need, that's what we are paying them to do, is to identify those needs. So
I think
Clear on
that should be the first step. I think the first step is we should, now it might be an incomplete list and we may prioritize some pieces higher than others, but I think the first step should be to ask department heads for their lists.
I think that's a good idea, but I think certain department heads are not going to know what those items are.
Let's start Monday.
let's have a meeting on
Okay.
Monday.
Yep.
6 o'clock at town office.
Yep.
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 And while we're on the timing, there was a motion or a suggestion made that we change the start of the town, our select board meetings from 7 and move it back to 6. So
Love it.
you love it?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do we need a motion to do that?
I move that,
Make it
and we
official.
may need to, and we'll have to do notification on that.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it for the 20th.
I would suggest starting in May.
Yeah,
For
that's
them.
what I was going to suggest.
Okay.
I move that starting May 1st, that all select board meetings be posted and updated to start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Mount Vernon Community Center, unless otherwise posted on the agenda.
Second.
Second.
And a vote,
Aye.
5-0. And while we're on easy ones, direct deposit.
Yes.
A lot of employers require direct deposit, and I think it's about time that the town of Mount Vernon apply that policy to all of our employees. Not to start tomorrow, but to start as of the new fiscal year.
I would almost wait and do it on a calendar year. Give employees 6 months. If they don't have, or they give them 6 months to do that, over 2 months.
Yeah, Dorcas is asking that we do it sooner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the recommendation then.
They'll give them.
I would like to do the fiscal year. To do it right away.
So July, starting in July.
Yeah.
But that should be more than enough time to
Right.
open a
You've
bank.
got
It
3
it would
months.
be a 60-day notice.
Yeah.
If, you get something put in place by the end of the month.
So fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would need a policy.
Yeah, well,
We'll need an amendment to both personnel policy and.
correct.
It is not in the personnel policy. It is only in the financial policy.
Right, but I think we're gonna need an amendment to the personnel policy. It's gonna be, you're gonna have to amend it both. Cause
There's nothing about distribution of payment. If you
right, but
wanna-
it's a
if
new
you wanna add
requirement
it in-
on the employee. It should also be in the personnel policy.
If you want to add that, that's fine, but it's definitely, it's not required. Employees have to
Well, what-
abide by the financial policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm not saying it is necessarily required in the personnel policy, but the personnel policy should be all inclusive of all requirements on the employee. So that requirement on the employee should be notified in the personnel policy.
Okay. Um, Next up are several just reminders. The comprehensive survey, we've talked about that a few times tonight. That ends, the survey part ends April 16th. Please be sure everybody's submitted your survey responses.
I double checked the timing. It'll be at 11:55 PM. It will shut down automatically. I checked it yesterday, or not yet. I checked it last week. I double checked it, so it will shut down automatically at 11:55 PM Eastern Standard Time. If you give me 2 minutes, I can check.
Well, while you're checking, just probably my last reminder to sign up for notifications on the website. Just go to the top right of the website and you'll see a notifications sign up, and put your email address in, sign up for all of the notifications, and you can always remove them if you find that it's too much. But I doubt that you will.
I have it pulled up.
Okay.
As of right now, we have 196 responses, and I have another 5 paper responses that I need to put in tonight. So
Okay.
that should put us at 201. So mental math, like a ninth of the town. Which for compared to the survey 6 years ago, it's nearly triple.
So some of these reminders might be working. Next up is that the nominations for elected officials, the papers are due back April 21st. This is a bit of a change from April 20th at 5 PM. It's now April 21st at 3 PM. And that's because Patriots Day is on the 20th and the town office won't be open that day.
I move that we post 5 positions for the after school or for the school elementary advisory committee, 2 with a 3-year term, 2 with a 2-year term, 1 with a 1-year term. And at the conclusion of each term, that will revert to a full 3-year term.
Yep. Second.
And a vote,
Aye.
5-0. Okay, and then the Blake Hill Bridge, they poured the footing on the west side of the bridge on Friday, and they're putting in the rebar for the next pour, which is going to happen on Wednesday, again on the west side. And from there, they'll put the stone on top of that once that cement is cured properly. And we seem to be back in the races. I had a little bit of concern because they did not find bedrock on the west side where they expected to find it. And so there was a little extra work done to make it happen. And then again, another item that we touched on last meeting was that we do need volunteers for the Board of Appeals. So if you have any suggestions or you want to volunteer, please let me know.
Also for the planning board.
Also for the planning board.
How many? 1?
We need 3.
How many members?
3 on the plan?
We
Yeah,
need 3?
We need 1 more full-time and 2 alternates per the bylaws.
Okay. We also need planning board volunteer. Are there any other? Any?
Patriots Day is not a federal holiday. Is it a state recognized holiday?
I believe so.
Okay, so it's a Maine state recognized holiday. I'm just gonna make note.
Thanks. Are there any other comments that people want to bring up?
Yeah, we skipped over the budget.
We did?
Oh, yeah.
What was that? Oh, your budget update. Okay.
So,
Sorry.
no, you're good. The budget committee held its final meeting last week, and of the members present, there was no objections on sending it to us, so the budget is in our hands now. We've held 2 public hearings. I've had mostly positive feedback on the current budget. There's a couple of items that we need to look into, one being workers' comp insurance. On that end, I haven't heard back on that. I have circulated a rough draft of the warrants. We had discussed consolidating them down and having the actual voted on warrants be the total, which we already vote on, and just listing the total on the warrant, and then attaching an addendum or an addendum, which is the budget spreadsheet, to make it a little bit cleaner in the town report. And that's how I've structured the draft. I need to update it to include all of the advisory positions, but I haven't heard any feedback on the draft of the warrant thus far. If there are, the other thing I did was reorganized it so that we vote expenses, revenues, and then all of the administrative stuff at the end. So that way there, it's kind of clear that we're voting on expenses. Okay, now we're voting on what to do with revenue. And now we're voting on the liens and
Yep.
mileage rates and all that.
Sounds great.
So I have that done, and then ordinance review committee's not here now. But once we get those in, as long as we get them in as a Word doc and not a scanned PDF or anything, we can just copy and paste it and then format it into the land use ordinances. But currently, if all goes to plan, we're at 31 articles. So. No, I ended up missing it because I had stuff come up that day, but from what I haven't pulled the number. Give me 2 minutes, I can pull the numbers. But I think from what I was getting for a vibe going into that meeting, they were also just kind of sending their number. Yeah. And what I got told on that for an explanation, I gotta go back and watch the video, but last week was not going well towards the end of it, with work stuff. There is a lot of mandates from the states on the jails and a lot of more mandates on Kennebec County Sheriff's Office. And if the state did what the state was supposed to do, it probably wouldn't be a 9% increase. It'd probably be more manageable, but the state's going to do what the state's going to do in terms of doling money out. And we are at their mercy. There is a budget committee
Right.
that you can get appointed onto, and then we elect county commissioners. But again, it's the same as the school. The school we have a little bit more authority on because we have the budget referenda where we can actually vote the budget down in 2 places. But at the county level, there really isn't municipal control because they're above us. We, in theory, answer to the county. So it's kind of this is what it costs to run the county. This is your population. This is what you pay kind of deal. And it's kind of, I hate to say it is, it's kind of, it is what it is. Like you can apply, I've had some pretty productive conversations with Joe Petrotsky, our county commissioner, and he gets it. He gets that the state's cutting funding to the schools, which is driving up property taxes, that inflation is high. So and the towns have capital needs. They get it, but it costs X amount of dollars to run the jail, and it costs X amount of dollars to have the sheriff patrols. And when the state cuts back state police patrols, that means you need to pay more Kennebec County Sheriff's officers, and it balloons and it balloons and it balloons. It's probably not the answer people want to hear for their pocketbooks, but that's the answer I'm getting from the county. Call your county commissioner and call your county commissioner. I'd say the same on the school budget. Call the school board.
And they do reach out from time to time for board members. There was an opening on the board, but none of us stepped forward at this time to join the board.
And they also meet at weird times.
Right.
Like they meet in Augusta and Waterville, and they want you in Augusta and Waterville at like 6 o'clock at night. And if you don't work in Augusta or Waterville, it's hard to get there. on time. So.
Justin, do you have anything? Okay.
On the budget, at this point, I'd like to get some more feedback on those like last couple of items, but I think we're tentatively a go for a vote on the 20th. I think we had tentatively put in a special meeting on the 13th. Given where we are, I think we're good to vote. Or I think we should have a full, I'll do another round of a full budget presentation on the 20th. And we'll go through, maybe not line by line, but warrant article by warrant article. And just kind of discuss it as a full board. Are we a go, no go? And then we'll vote on it. We'll put warrants together and then pending feedback from you all, I'd like to vote on the warrants, probably the 4th, for the budgetary warrants. I think if there's other additions to it, obviously, we can hold off on the physical full warrant, but we have a tentative public hearing on the warrant scheduled for the 2nd of May, following the community breakfast here. So, I've shared that document around. If you can please provide feedback on it so that I can get a draft up on the website after the 20th, that would be greatly appreciated.
Can I ask Remy, how's the town report coming and when do you need those warrants for the town report? What's the deadline?
The deadline's set by you guys for the articles for the warrant on that. I can get it. I'm sure they can get it out and printed relatively quickly. I'm still missing, I sent out that email with what I'm missing. I saw the RSU piece come through. It was sitting on the select board's desk today, so that'll get added. I'm missing a write-up from a couple committees, put out notes for those. I did send an email to you guys about, I don't know where to start. The only one that I really have gotten since I sent that email on Thursday, is the RSU piece.
You got the RSU?
I did get the RSU. That is the only one I've gotten since Thursday. But I have notes out to some people, and then there are a couple that I don't know who I should be contacting, or if you guys want to reach out.
Who's gonna write our letter this year? You writing it?
Yeah.
Okay. I will submit one for the budget process.
Okay.
And
Dana did
outlining what
those
we've done.
historical ones, so don't worry about it.
Okay, that's fine. It's mostly complete if, you reviewed the draft I sent. It needs some touch-ups, but some of those things are really best to do once you have everything in place, like labeling and stuff, editing the what's on what page kind of situation. You really just want to wait until you have everything where you want it to be. It's silly to number pages and then have to go back and renumber pages because you made one edit. So,
Right.
I'm sure it could be wrapped up within, if I had the rest of the information, I could wrap it up in a few hours, a couple hours. So
Thank you, Remy. That's great.
So I kind of think with that then, knowing that piece, that the report is assuming we can get all the information in, that the report is close, and it is just really waiting on us for the warrants.
yeah, it's warrants, and then like the outstanding taxes piece, that was
The audits.
the audits. Yep.
So I think with that, we are going to town meeting on the 13th. Let's target, and I think we may need to just add a special meeting for this, because we can either vote on everything on the 4th, or we'd have to wait till the 18th. I would suggest we just have a special budget meeting of the select board at the town office to basically a working session on the, well, no, it can't be a working session because we're gonna vote. but have a meeting on the 11th. That's a quasi working session to finalize any touches up to the warrants, lock in our budget figures, and then vote to call the annual town meeting on May 11th. And that would give us 30 days notice to get it printed, get it on the website, get notices out, and start having discussion on it.
Is there a meeting tomorrow night?
No.
No,
Good.
And April 13th, there isn't a meeting. as
there's
well.
not a meeting on the April 13th.
What about May 2nd?
Yes, that is still on the cards for discussing the warrant
Okay.
drafts.
Karen?
Karen Maris Pond Road, I just have some quick questions and then you just confused me again. So no meeting on April 7th.
No meeting tomorrow.
And then April 20th, yes or no?
That is a regularly scheduled board meeting. That will happen.
But is that where you're gonna do the budget presentation?
I'm gonna just do a once over for the board
Okay.
before the board votes on it.
Because it's vacation, so it would just be for the board, not for the public.
Right, because it's more, is the board gonna send this to the warrants? To write the warrants?
Well, it's still a public meeting,
It's
but
still a public meeting. It's recorded and uploaded on Zoom.
I was just, yeah, I guess Zoom. I'm just thinking of vacation, that's all. And then you keep saying the warrants have been circulated. Did I miss an email?
So, no, so the warrants, I'm still putting it together. We're going to circulate the warrants on the 20th.
Okay, so they're not floating about right now.
They're not floating about right now. There's a draft that I've just asked for some preliminary feedback from the select board on. But I will present the warrants at the next meeting. And then there will be 2 weeks of comment period before the public hearing on the 2nd. And then
May 2nd.
May 2nd, there'll be a public hearing on the warrants, kind of going through what we're voting on. And then if it's good to go coming out of that public hearing, we'll vote on the 4th. Otherwise, and I think it's probably best prudence would be to vote on the 11th.
The 11th.
May 2nd is a Saturday.
Yep. And then at that, if we vote on the 4th, that's an extra week, but I think having that extra week built in to just make sure if there's petitions out or anything like that.
And then I didn't hear what your question was, Remy, about the historical annual report, Bob.
Oh, it's not the Historical Society report. I already have that. So the last couple of town reports, there's been in like the first page or so, there's been a history.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and so I didn't have any information for a new one this year, but the Historical Society wrote a whole report and that's already built into the report itself. And it's just not on the first page because they got their own dedicated section instead.
You could still reach out to Ingrid or somebody could provide you a traditional front page historical report as well, because their annual report is different, in my opinion, but that's you guys call. My other question on the town report, did you ever get a quote for how many to print for 500, Bob?
To print what?
To print the annual reports. It was a question at the budget committee. It's a budget line item. Did you ever get that?
I feel like I did. I feel like I called copies, had a mental number, and never plugged it. No, that might have been for printing No, I called them on tax maps.
Because
I've
we
gotta
talked
go in
about,
Anyway,
I'm sorry?
I gotta go in anyway,
Well, we,
pick something up. so I can
okay,
get
it's
it.
a budget line item. So when we talked about printing 500 so that
Yep.
people actually could get them.
500? Is that what we need?
Well, we printed, what did we print? 100 last year and we ran out. So
Yeah, I'll
Maybe
check on that.
200.
well, if we got a price, we could make a decision about it, and it's something the budget committee talked about.
Yep.
I'll give
500.
copies a call tomorrow and just see where they're at.
That would be great. I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Vote. I'll take your yay, Dan.
That was very clearly a yay.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you and good night.